it's counterbalance. And you got to understand when you get out of balance, you just got to go get balanced back, on the other side. And it's a constant juggling act. And there's really, it's a pipe dream to think that life someday is just going to be this perfect 9 to 5. And, I'm not going to have seasons to go through and all that. That's a lie. So.
Welcome back, everyone, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I'm Matt Pinelli. Garrett Fry is here, and we also have an incredible special guest, my good friend Dennis Tuttle, who is the team leader of the Dennis Tuttle team, which is an independent brokerage in Arlington, Texas. Dennis, welcome to the show, man. We're excited to chat with you and learn all about your history and share some incredible wisdom.
Man, well, thanks for having me, Matt and Garrett. I love the podcast, and long time listener. So it's an honor to actually be on the podcast today. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Garrett, good morning to you, my friend.
Yeah, good morning. I'm super excited, Dennis, that you're going to take some time with us today. And I know you through Matt. Matt has shared stuff, a lot with me over the years, and it's really amazing to hear what you've accomplished, what you do, how you show up in this world. That's what I'm most excited to talk to you about, is just how you show up for the people around you, for your kids, for all this. We're going to tie this all in together, but I'm getting to know you just at the same time that a lot of the listeners are getting to know you. So this is fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
This is going to be great. For those of you who don't know Dennis, so Dennis has been running the Dennis Tuttle team since 2019. Dennis, you and I have been together for a little over 2 years working together. And what I'm really looking forward for people to get out of this is several things. One, like how to build an incredible team and business, how to show up in just a way that attracts more and more people to you, and being of that giver mindset. Like you are kind of the epitome of being a go-giver, and many of the listeners have read that book by Bob Berg for sure. But Dennis, let's start with kind of some of your history, because you also have some really incredible history, not only in sales yourself, but also in leadership. So just tell us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to open your own brokerage in 2019.
Yeah. So I got into real estate actually right out of high school. So I'm a musician as well. So I've played guitar for, almost 25, 26 years, something like that. And that was my original goal, is that I'm going to be a rock star and I'll tour the world, and that's what I'm going to do for a living. And then I started dating my wife, and I was like, I should probably think about real jobs. And so
did she require that? Was she like, okay, can we like talk about being a rock star for a second and maybe get something that's a little bit more secure?
She never did. No, I think that was just me like realizing like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out something else. And I had friends that went and ended up doing that, and they did that for a career for 10 or 15 years. And I've got friends in the industry that still do that. But I play guitar at church. I've been doing that for 25 years at least. And so I still do that. I play a couple times a month. So I still get my my need to play and all of that. But but that was like my original career vision. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I grew up in, my dad owned a roofing company, and he did a little bit of probably commercial investing, although he would never call himself an investor. And so I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was like 17 years old, and just, blew my mind. And so I got into the real estate investing world at that time, interning. And then I started, finding deals, getting paid finder's fees, flipping houses. I got into rentals in college. And then I got licensed in 2009 as a real estate agent. So I was in the investing world for about 4 or 5 years straight. And, I had a couple partners. My dad ended up being one of them. I think I did probably 40 real estate deals before I was 21. Maybe 21, 22, kind of around that age. So I've been in this for a while. I'll be 40 this year. So, but yeah, 17, 18, started diving into real estate, licensed in 2009. And then I moved into leadership at our brokerage at the time in 2013. and I was the team leader of the number one office in the world at the time with Keller Williams. And on our brokerage in Texas, we built it up to about somewhere between 600 and 700 agents. And so I spent all my time recruiting, coaching, training, and then I moved into regional leadership for about a year. And so I helped run the North Texas, New Mexico, Memphis region area. And so I was kind of like the leadership for the leadership. So had a lot of fun doing that. Got to, go down, I worked, was in small rooms with Gary Keller himself and hearing about the future of the industry and doing all of that. And so that was really neat. So I did that for about a year. And then, and then in 2019, I had just kind of alignment changes, goal changes, vision changes, and I stepped out of that and went back into my real estate team and started back with my team was running actually for all those years. I had a couple people that kept the business alive, and the only reason I kept it alive, I never imagined actually going back into the brokerage business and selling real estate. I didn't sell real estate for 6 years when I was in leadership. And I kept the team going just in case they ever fired me. And, because that was a risk, in the corporate world, they could say, hey, you're not hitting numbers. We don't want you anymore. So I didn't want to have to start totally from scratch. Although when I came back into it, that's pretty much what I did. I mean, I didn't, my database had dwindled and, I had to just rebuild it. So 2019 stepped back in, and then we got our broker's license, and, here we are today. So this is what I professionally do full time now, is just, is running the team and selling real estate. So yeah, so lots have happened in the last, I guess, 16 years since I got my license. So
Dennis, I really appreciate that you kept the other business kind of going in the background while doing what you were doing. There's an amazing safety net with doing that. And I did that for a long time, where I kind of was balancing two sides of businesses. And having to make that decision of, do I fully let that go and go this direction, but knowing that that's there, of if I need to make a change, if I need to make a shift like that, I can go back to. Well done balancing that out. And I think a lot of people make the decision just to, I'm going this way or I'm going that way. And it takes a lot of self-control and just kind of balance of your energy to make that happen. So well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really glad when I made the decision that I had something to step back into, at least. And, and it felt like starting from scratch, but at least, I had a little bit of a foundation there. And, our director of operations, Kimberly, that's with us still to this day, she had already been on the team for about a year when I stepped back into it. So it was nice to have a couple of things in place for sure. So, but yeah, and then we've been, just running the team and doing that ever since. So I've had a lot of, I've kind of worn a lot of hats in the industry, but it's always been real estate. So,
and during that time too, you also are growing a family. You have 5 kids, which is certainly not a small amount to manage as well, right?
Right. No, yeah, I've been married for 18 years and have 5 kids. My oldest will be 15 this year. He's 14, and my youngest is 4. About to turn 5, and then everybody in between. So 5 kids, and then I serve at church, like I mentioned. I play guitar. I lead the young adults ministry there, and then we may get into this later, but we also run a nonprofit called Building Blocks for Kids that my son started actually, and so lots of things. So it's not just real estate, but I keep busy for sure. So
we definitely will get into the Building Blocks for Kids, because I'm really excited about that. I'm excited that your son started it, and I'm all about making good humans on this planet, man. So that resonates with me a lot. I like that.
Good. Yeah, well, me too.
Well, so Dennis, let's get into your team a little bit, because I think this is really interesting. Like you've created what today is kind of a unique structure, but really isn't a unique structure in the way of what is, I think, a smart way to run a real estate brokerage / team. And really it's set up as a team. You just happen to be a brokerage, right?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the vision that you kind of created as you're going into this? And I know you and I have worked on kind of perfecting a little bit of the mission statement and vision statement over the past year. But tell us a little bit about that, how you've set it up and how the team functions.
Yeah, it's funny. We're really like old school of what brokerages used to be, right? So back in probably prior to the 80s, the real estate brokerage was a full service business for the agent, right? And it wasn't until the really big brokerages came along where everybody said, hey, you can own your own thing and be your own team, and we'll be here to support you, but it's on you, right? But then what happened was splits got lowered, the cap model came into place, and then everybody kind of shifted from like, we're all salespeople for a company to we're all business owners. But the reality is not everybody's cut out or wants the responsibility of being a business owner. And I remember kind of having an epiphany when I was running the other brokerage, and it was like, okay, we have this like non-traditional model that is like an interdependent model that teaches people how to go build traditional real estate businesses, And so it's like we went from traditional to non-traditional, but we're teaching how to build traditional. And that's really what happened. The brokerage world kind of became like this canopy over all these micro brokerages. Really but back in the day, when you were at a brokerage, the brokerage did your marketing and they helped you do your transaction coordinating, and they answered the phones, and they did all these services. There was all this value, and like the splits were different, and so it kind of got away from that. But I feel like in the industry as agents, there's a lot of people that just want to come in and they just want to sell real estate. That's their strength zone. They're not marketers. They're not accountants. They don't want to be visionary. They just want to, love on people, sell real estate, and make money. And so, we're like, I guess what the industry would call a teamerage, right? We're a team that happens to have a broker's license. So we're not with, brokerage anymore, just ourselves. But it's a high value type of arrangement. And so I talk a lot about leading with value. And leading with values, that's where the vision and the mission and the core value system kind of comes into place, which we can get into that. But like we run it like our agents they're not responsible for anything but going and writing contracts, going on appointments, and that's it. Like even on a listing, when they go to the listing appointment, that's the last time they ever have to go to that house, because we've got people that do the signs and lock boxes, the photography, the transaction coordinating, all the paperwork, all of that stuff. So that way they can stay in their lane, and hopefully they're making 2 or 3 times as much money because they're not having to spend half their time doing all of this other stuff. And so it's not like anything new, but it's just something that I feel like got scattered about 30 years ago as the big brokerage worlds kind of came into place. And so we're just trying to kind of go back to that a little bit.
So I've been around brokerages since the, 80s and 90s, and watched my dad build brokerages as he, was moving through the Bay Area. And you're 100% right. Everything you're saying, like where we went from to then this model that everybody went like, oh, I'm my own business owner. Like I'm going to go do this on my own. Yeah. Matt and I have talked about this a lot. The interesting thing about our industry is that everybody wants to be self-employed business owners, but nobody's been trained how to be a business owner, and nobody even has the skills to be able to hold the reins of that and to be able to run with it. And so when I was learning about your setup here and the notes that I have, so if I'm looking over here, I've got my notes up, which is building a team focused on agent net income instead of gross income. Yeah. And providing a platform for them, because you're a 50-50 split. Like that, right. I want to talk about that, because Matt and I watch so many agents that look at brokerages. They'll come to us going, I'm thinking about making a move. And I'm like, well, why are you going to move over there? Well, they're a 90-10 split, and I'm at an 80-20 split right now.
Which I get an extra 10%. I've had people ask me about an extra 5%. They're like, I can probably go from 85 to 90 if I make the switch over here. I'm like, wait, just for 5%?
Obviously, we're going to make more money, right, Matt? Like, here we go. And that older brokerage model of show up, do your deals, make your deals happen, go out, find more opportunity to go make more deals happen. And we got all of it taken care of on the backside. Like, there's so much value in that model. And then you got to look at it and go, like, I think the 50-50 split's worth it, as long as you have a brokerage that is showing up for you and doing that, which means you've got a lot on your plate to make sure that you are providing for that 50 split, which I think is a great, healthy relationship.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the key, because when I think about teams, and I've coached, I don't know how many team leaders and people over the years. You know, when I was team leader of that Arlington office, I spent most of my time coaching the top people, and I saw the good, bad, and ugly with teams, and I saw a lot of them train wreck because what they would be like flash in a pan type businesses. They'd go out, they'd hire a bunch of people, and what they tried to do was replicate the big brokerage model. So they'd do low splits, they'd do caps with their people, but they couldn't provide enough value, nor could they have enough agents for the owner of that business to actually make any money. And so, like, we very rarely talk about volume. We never talk about GCI. We talk about net income, and we talk about net income for our agents. And when I'm looking at the financials every month, I'm looking at what's our profitability. And so you have to be set up. And a lot of teams, what would happen is they build zero foundation. So they would have no operations help. They would have no model or system for their people to follow. They just hire a bunch of people, and then everything would look really good for about 6 months. It looked really cool on social media. And then all of a sudden their people are frustrated because there's no value, there's no support. And they're like, what am I doing this for? And then everybody leaves. And then the team leader realizes, like, oh, I need to go build a foundation for the business. So what we did was like the complete opposite of most. Like, we grew very slowly. Like, I didn't even turn on the hiring, lever until about 3 years in. I took who we had, and we just focused on our foundation and our model that we could actually then recruit to. And so, because I don't care what my team looks like on social media. It wasn't about a big team photo. We haven't even taken a team photo in like 3 years. So, but it was about the value that we can give. And I've always told agents, I'm like, look, if people come to you for price, they will leave you for price. If they come to you for a split, they're going to leave you for a split. So we have this value gap problem. And the way I describe it is value given, right, has to equal the value paid, or the price that's paid. And the wider the gap, so for example, like if we put it on a scale of 1 to 10, if the value given is a 5 and the price that's paid is a 10, the gap there represents the level of dissatisfaction that somebody's going to have with that product or service. If the value is an 8, though, and the price paid is an 8, there's no conflict, there's no dissatisfaction. But if the price is a 5 and they're getting an 8, now that gap represents the level of satisfaction that they have with that decision. So our job as leaders is to truly provide more value than what we're getting paid. And that goes for buyers and sellers as well as running a business. And so every day the thought should be, how do I add more value to my team? How do we add more value to the experience for our clients? And as long as you're doing that, and I think, for me, that's probably the number one thing on my mind every day is how do we continue to add value, deliver value, make good on that commitment with our people, and are we doing enough? And so if I'm ever concerned about something, are we providing enough value for our people compared to what they're paying to be here? Yeah. And my top 2 guys on the team they've both been with the team over 5 years. We've never had a commission conversation once. Never.
And you set up incentives for them to grow as well, because you also have a little bit of internal coaching that goes on. So there's a little advantage for people who also help out the new agents that come on the team, which is really great. But this also speaks to, Dennis, your commitment to establishing really strong core values and mission statements and vision statements. And one of your internal visions is to have the highest net income agents in the industry. How is like that emphasis on just really defining good core values, sticking to a mission helped you grow, not just with your team, but also how it's helped you grow the business externally with buyers and sellers too? Because a lot of people kind of maybe breeze over that, being like, yeah, that's nice, that's fluff, but I just really need to focus on making money first. Then I can figure that out. But you went the other direction, or like, hey, let's make sure that we do this. And then you continually review and make sure that that mission is in place.
Yeah. Well, so we lead everything with that. Like, we read every morning when the team comes in for our morning huddle, the mission statement is up on the screen in our training room. We read the mission statement, we read the vision statements, and I'll read them here just to bring clarity to that.
We actually used yours as an example in our business planning workshop.
Yeah, and the business planning, that meant a lot to me too, considering what our company vision, is. But so I'll read those in a second, and then we also, when we sit down with someone that we're looking to hire, after we go through kind of the consultation of getting to know them, the first thing we go through is our mission, vision, values, beliefs, perspective. And I show them something like this. You can't see it if you're not watching, but it has all of our stuff clearly defined. I go through like, this is who we are. And then the second thing that I go through with them is what we call our standards for success, which talk about like I'm a unique business in the sense too that like everybody's here every day in person. So I'm like, for us to be able to deliver value, if you're not here, like if you're part-time and you can't be here every morning for our morning huddle, you can't be here for team meeting, you can't be here for coaching, then you're not going to get the value that we have. And so I turn down people all the time because they're not full-time, or they don't want to commit to being here. And for now, that's the model. That could change in the future, but I know for me, if I don't show up, I'm not going to make as much money for sure.
You're breaking all the rules, man. You want everybody to show up in this world where everybody says, I don't want to show up anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear all of the mission statement and your goals and your core values, because it's funny. Matt and I are reading the book Traction right now. We read a book every month. We rip it apart. And as I'm sitting here listening to it, I just read the part last night where we're saying when you're bringing in people into your world, when you're building your business, the first thing you got to figure out is, do they fit with your core values, with your mission statement, with your vision of where you're going? Yep. And they could be the nicest person in the world, but if they don't fit into that space right there, like, they can't come into your business. So I love that you start with that right there and you get that on the table, get it clean first. So then, if you have the right person to even take that next step with. So well done, man.
Well, thank you. Well, we shoot ourselves in the foot if we don't. If we hire people that are not in alignment with who we are and in alignment with the vision, I'm looking at two things when I'm meeting with somebody is, one, really the most important thing is, can I help them get where they want to go? Like, are we a fit? Are we the right vehicle to help get them from point A to point B? If they sit in front of me and they're like, hey, I want to make $1 million in the next 12 months, like, I don't know how to do that for them. Like, we're probably not the business for them, and that's okay. But like, or we get with someone, they're just totally not in alignment. Like, when I'm reading the mission and vision to them, I'm paying attention. Like, are they leaning in, or are they like cringing? Are they like I don't, I don't like that. Like, I'm reading the body language, and that right there actually eliminates a candidate for our team, because like I don't call them back, or they won't call me back, and that's cool. But I want to make sure we're in alignment, because if we hire people that are not in alignment, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot the whole time they're on the team, trying to change them, right? And nobody's going to be perfect, and nobody's going to be an absolute 100%, but like, they got to be at least like a passing grade, or want to be like they're like, I'm not there, but I want to be there. We can work with that. Like, that's good, but it has to be that, because what happens when someone's on your team and they get out of alignment, I talk about it like a rubber band. If I'm walking in step with someone, we're holding a big rubber band. If they pull away from that, right now we've got tension and stress. And so there's only a couple of options. One option is I have to change my standard, right, to get closer to them, to relieve the stress, or I have to bring them back to the standard or to the vision, or I got to let them go. But I can't have this tension and stress constantly pulling on the business. So we nip stuff in the bud really quickly. And that's really like, if someone gets out of alignment, the first conversation we're having is back to like, hey, look, this is our mission. this is our vision. And I feel like this behavior or whatever just happened is not in alignment with who we are, and this is where we're going. And so, and I'm not going to change the mission and vision. So, I mean, we got to get people, back in place. So,
and that's really important, Dennis. I just want to highlight, this was maybe summertime last year or something, that you had an agent who wasn't showing up and wasn't adhering to the standards. You brought him in, you had a tough conversation with him. And then a month later, he came back and thanked you for that conversation to say, hey, I needed that. I needed to hear that. And that's what happens when you deploy, active leadership and following those things. So, so many broker owners, team leaders will just let things go for so long. And then that agent lets go of the rubber band and it just comes back and slaps everybody when it slings back.
Or worse, they make special considerations internally where they go, we're going to treat this person differently. We're going to treat this person differently. And then what you have is you have an entire team that has no idea what you all stand for. Yeah. And then you have an entire breakdown. And I watch that happen all the time. So you sticking to your standards of what your business is, it gives that level of comfort for those that come into your world to say, Dennis does what he says he's going to do. He stays by his standards. He follows a vision. He follows his mission statement. And there's a level of trust that allows you to get away with the 50-50 split and allows people to say, I feel safe here. I've got everything taken care of. Now I just got to go out and be the best I can be and make my business happen. I think all that stuff has to be there. Otherwise, you were talking about teams earlier and how some of them are this flash in the pan. And I think a lot of them get started going, just think of how much money we're going to make as this team leader. And that's all that's driven behind it. And you got to have that foundation. It's the most critical piece of this whole thing.
It's huge. Well, I read somewhere, and I teach this when I talk on this topic, but standards are not what you say. Standards are what you accept. So you could say your standard is be on time, or you could say your standard is, operate in excellence. But if you accept less all the time and you never say anything about it, then that's actually what your standard is. Your standards are what you accept, not what you say. And so which is why we have to talk about it, but then we have to follow through. And as the leader, we have to live it out as well. So we attract who we are, not what we want. And so it starts with us as the leader, right? And then you teach that to your team. And like our team, we're reading right now John Wooden's book, Wooden on Leadership. It's probably my favorite leadership book that has ever been written. And it's a weird book for you to think like, why are we all reading this as a team? But like, I want them to understand what makes a good leader, what makes a good teammate, team player, what does a good team look like? And it is riddled with this idea of the standards. And like you can't let people slack on certain things, especially when it comes to a mission and a vision. And you guys did such a great job this year on the business planning, defining mission and vision. And we took a lot of those exercises and did that with our team at the end of the year as well when we were doing our business planning. But just to like recap on that, the way we define mission and vision as well is mission is what are we setting out to accomplish on a daily basis? Like what are we about? Who are we? What could we look at and say at the end of the day, I did that? And then the vision statement is what does the world or our lives look like if we follow the mission, right? So if we successfully live the mission, the vision is what the world looks like. And so to give you an example, and Simon Sinek says this too, he says, he talks about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think this is missed in leadership and running businesses all the time because people come in and they just talk about, okay, this is what we do. Here's all the features, right, of our business, but they don't talk about why they do it and they don't live that as an example. And so people, Simon Sinek said a company doesn't have a culture. The company is the culture. So if your company is like, okay, well, we just have a culture day or we have a culture meeting and we're going to plan culture stuff. Well, then that is your culture, right? Your culture is that you have isolated and boxed in the culture side of your business, but you're really saying it's not who we are. It's just who we are sometimes. But that would be your culture, right? So the company is the culture. So you have to get very clear on who are we as a company? Who are we as the people in the company? And that is our culture. So like our mission, for example, and y'all shared this in the business planning clinic, but it's to serve the people in our communities and team members that we're blessed to know with excellence. So, for example, we have a lot of feel-good stuff, but like we also believe in doing stuff with excellence. So we don't do halfway work and hope that people just think we're really nice. Yes, we're nice, but we also show up with excellence, right? So blessed to know with excellence by giving unreasonable hospitality through the business we've been entrusted to steward over, and to always elevate people to a better place while honoring Father God in all we do. So there's all the elements. So we could say by the end of the day, even like this elevating portion, I tell my team, and this is part of my personal mission statement, it's like, look, if we're going to spend 5 minutes together or 50 years together, the goal is that you're better off at the end of that run than you were before. You're better off at the end of the phone call than you were before. Because we all get those calls and you're like, I do not want to answer this person's phone call, because you just know like my day is going to get worse, right? So we don't want to be that team or those people. Like we want to elevate people to a better place than they were before knowing us or doing business with us. So every day we should be able to check this box that, okay, did we serve? Did we give? Did we elevate? In everything that we did. That's the mission. And then I broke another rule, Garrett, with visions. And I got Matt's permission to break the rule because I'm like, man, I'm really struggling coming up with one vision statement. And we did rewrite these vision statements this year because our vision fell kind of flat compared to what our mission statement says. And so I came up with a company vision and then a partnership vision, which is like an internal one for our agents. So the company vision for us is to be the industry leader in unreasonably serving, giving, and elevating the real estate brokerage experience for our clients and team members, leading them to achieve their goals while always staying true to our mission. Meaning we're not going to compromise our mission. We're not going to steal or rip people off or do bad deals just for the sake of pulling ahead, right? So we want to stay true to the mission, but help elevate that real estate brokerage experience for everybody involved. That's the company vision. Because by and large, the real estate brokerage experience is not that good, in our industry. Yeah. Most people cringe when they think about having to work with a real estate agent. So we're working to, be better at that on our end. And then the partnership vision, like Matt talked about earlier, is to lead our team members to live their life's purpose and goals as they earn the highest net income per agent in the industry while always staying true to our mission. So there's two aspects there. And again, we read this every day. My team, someone reads the mission, someone reads the vision statements every day, every team meeting, constant. And, but there's two aspects there. Like, yeah, we're here to help them hit their goals. We're here to help them make the highest net income, which we're researching and working on that, per agent in the industry. But we're also here to help them live their life's purpose, right? So they're not just like making a bunch of money, but everybody hates them, or their kids hate them and their wife hates them, and they have no personal life. Like that's not our goal either. So we've had to get really in tune with, okay, well, what's your purpose? What's your personal mission? What's your personal vision? And when you lead with that stuff, right? People like if you look at that, there's nothing in there about me. There's nothing in this mission or vision statement that has anything to do with me. It's about what we're doing for them. And we all know if we do a good job for other people, like we're going to be taken care of. So that's not an issue. But our team knows like we're here for them. Like they don't feel like we're trying to get something out of them. Like they know we're here to support them and help them get where they want to go. So
Dennis, in the book Traction we're reading right now, they say you got to say your vision 7 times before your people inside will even remotely take you seriously. And I love he said in the book when I was reading it last night, he said, if I say it 3 times and I'm like, they're not getting it yet, what you got to say is I've said it 3 times. I have 4 more to go before they fully take me seriously. Yeah. And you did a couple things here. I was taking notes as you were talking. One is you said every day we talk about our vision statement and we talk about our mission statement, which is way more than 7 times.
Right,
that is making it part of who you are, what you're all about. And you talked about the culture. And it's interesting because a lot of companies, as you said, have a culture day. And a lot of times their culture day is there a way to make a Facebook post saying, look at how much culture we have. We got culture. Yes, we do. That kind of, trying to show it that way. And the way you truly build a culture is showing up every single day and doing it that way all the time. It's not a one-off. It's not a, hey, look at us, we're doing this right now. And it says a lot, again, about what you've built and what you've done here. And the vision and the mission, it was great to have you be a part or be able to share into our business planning and our journey this year.
Yeah.
I always say the mission, you should be able to walk up to somebody and like a soldier, and put your hand on their shoulder and say, soldier, what's your mission right now? And they'll know exactly what their mission is for that day, for that job, for that journey, with this greater vision of what they're supporting out here, which I think you've done a great job with inside your company.
Thank you. Well, and it's funny because like people, someone asked me to come speak on recruiting and retention, because I mean, when I had to recruit at least 20 people a month to just break even on our growth numbers in my previous jobs. And so, there was years I recruited probably 300 people a year. And, so they wanted me to come talk about recruiting and retention. And I was like, well, if I'm going to talk about that, I need to talk about leading with value, and so and it's funny because people are like, man, yeah, but what's the strategy? What's the tactic? And there are tactics and there are strategies, but they're short-lived without this stuff that we're talking about. And, like our team, we had a record year last year. We almost doubled last year what we did in 2023. So it's not just like feel good stuff. Like it actually, like it's working, right? So like we have the numbers and the production to back it up, but like that's not the focus. And we look at numbers every day. We look at our scoreboard and how are we doing compared to our goals? And that's definitely conversation, but not before, we remind ourselves why we're doing it, right?
Well, I think what's important about the scoreboard too is you're not just showing and measuring your team based on how many deals they're closing. The measurement is the leading indicators. You're looking at, your connections, the conversations, the notes, the market impact reports, the real estate reviews that people are doing. That's the stuff that you're really measuring to see if that does drive the results, which is also unique because a lot of companies will have scoreboards, but it'll be who closed deals this week, who got a listing under contract, which it's not that that's not important. It's just that's not the behavior that you're looking to install in your people, right?
Right. Yeah, it's the lead measures. So we have all those aspects still, right? And yeah, we do focus on lead measures, not the lag measures. We celebrate the lag measures, but we celebrate the lead measures almost more. Like I'm more excited about someone hitting their handwritten note goal or their connects goal, their Ford Connect goal than anything else, because we know that's going to lead to the listings and the buyers taken and the under contracts and all of that. So those elements are there, right? It's not just this, but it can't be one or the other. Like I feel like you have to have that full picture in your business. Sure. So.
Well, and I don't have this picture. I don't know this for sure. I'm assuming here right now. So if I'm assuming wrong, just call me out on it. But usually when I find that you're leading in the way that you're leading, when we're talking about recruiting looks very different, because when you don't have this foundation, you are literally beating on every agent in town going, hey, come my way, come work with us. Look at what we got. Look at all this great stuff. Look what I'm going to do for you. When you're showing up in the way that you're showing up, recruiting is a very different game, because usually you're attracting in really good people. And I always say, if you're doing this right, if you're really showing up with true value, you're not having to tell everybody. They can see it from a mile away, and they're saying, hey, how do I be a part of what you guys got? How do I show up? Is that what you find typically in your world when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's more of an attraction deal where people are, they're seeing what we're doing and they're like, man, that's what I want. That's what I want to be a part of. Another one of, an agent on our team who's newer, but she's been doing really great. She was coming. One thing that we do, I teach wealth building classes 1 to 2 times a month. And we open that up to our client list, friends, people on social media, and our agents. And then we teach a lot of other stuff as well. That was kind of like my one thing that I could bring to the team. I didn't have a whole lot of other talents or skills, but I love to teach. So I was like, well, what if we start teaching classes? So about 3 years ago, we started teaching, and we do all this stuff for free. And people will come to those. I'll have agents come to those. And this, she did. She came to our classes for probably 6 to 12 months. She was a broker running her own thing, but she got burnt out. She's like, I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to all these responsibilities. I just want to stay in my lane and invest and sell real estate. And so, but she got to see who we were, right? And I teach business planning classes. I'll teach different things where people get to see this aspect. And so it was like, she just kind of had this epiphany, like, I should just be on this team. You know, this is exactly who I am already, and I'm in alignment. And so there was no recruiting happening. It was let's talk about it. We're a fit. I feel like we can help you get where you want to go. And, you know, and then she came on. So, so there are things I do have to do to
such a better way to build a business.
Happen. But yeah, I'm not begging people to come onto the team.
Not only that, you have team members that go and naturally attract people into the team as well, because several of your team members are there because DeAndre or Jacob was like, you should come over here and work with us because this place is amazing, right? And when you have agents that love where they work and they're bought into the mission, they deploy the mission, it's so much easier to attract other people because they're out there and the energy is with them as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, they're going to attract people that are like them, right? Which is why we're very careful on who we want on the team anyway. And that's a totally different mentality of recruiting, because if you're recruiting to just hit a number, then that appointment is about you. Mm-hmm. If you're recruiting to help and serve other people, now that appointment is about them. And when you recruit with them in mind versus you've got a number, and I understand we all have numbers to hit, we all have things, but I've been in situations where it's like, oh, I need like 3 more gross agents, or I'm going to be in trouble. You just take whoever you can find, even if they're not a good fit. And that does no good to anybody. Right. And so, I think it's okay to grow slower, but grow with quality and grow something that's going to last, versus, like I said, look good for a little while on social media and then it all, dissipates. So,
and that's been a fun part of your journey too. In my experience in being able to work with you over the past few years is you working to run that model so that, because you're still selling real estate as well, maybe not much longer. We're working on that, right? You're approaching this in a way of, hey, I'm going to make sure that this gets built right. And I move out of production in the correct way versus, just trying to load up on agents so that we hit the numbers that allows me to step away, because the sustainability of a business relies on the quality of people that you bring in.
Correct.
And all that, which is amazing. And now it sounds like you don't have a life because you're teaching classes multiple times a month. You're running a team, you're selling real estate, you're going out and speaking on leadership. By the way, you have 5 children and run a nonprofit. But one of your personal core values is really making sure there is this really awesome level of what I like to call, and what Garrett and I like to call, life work harmony as well. Mm-hmm. Right. So tell us a little bit about how you blend in your personal kind of lifestyle, and also how you help kind of coach your agents to do that too, because there's a lot you do outside of this business as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think I tell the team, and even if I'm talking to a new agent on the team, I'm like, I will be the first person to tell you to go take a day off, right? Because if I was told a long time ago, if you never have a day off, you'll never have a day on. And so there's a lot of burnout in business, period. And I told Matt several times, I'm kind of like anti-hustle culture, although I probably outwork a lot of people, but I'm not for doing that at the sake of my family or my relationship with God or my other responsibilities to this world, just for the sake of making money. And so you have to, it comes back to a priority structure, right? And for me, it's God first. And then if you're married and have kids, then I feel like it should be your spouse second, and then your kids. And we have a tendency, and this is hard. We want to put our kids above our spouse, but like, you got to understand your kids are they're going to be with you a lot shorter of a time than you're going to be with your spouse. And so you have to have that priority in place. So for me, it's God first, then my wife, then my kids, then my relationships, and then business, and everything else kind of gets in line after that. And I don't shy away from bringing that into business, bringing that into the conversation. A lot of times we want to compartmentalize all this stuff, but if your family life is struggling, it's going to affect your business. If your business is struggling, it's going to affect your family life. It's going to affect your spiritual life. It's going to affect your health. And you guys do such a good job of that counterbalancing conversation. But it's very important, and we're really big on that with our team, like days off, things like that. Even with operations, I haven't tracked sick days or vacation time since I've been back in the team, because people need to take, as long as the job's getting done, people need to take the time that they need to take, and that's the same for me. So, what's the point of all of this? If all the rest of it goes to pot. I had a friend of mine who's in the insurance business had lunch with me, and he's like, "Hey, can I ask your opinion on something?" And he took me to lunch. He wanted my advice on some stuff. And he said, "Hey, I've got this mentor, and he's telling me, like, just go hard for 5 years, real hard for 5 years, like miss birthdays if I have to, and don't take a day off. And then at the end of 5 years, I'll have so much money that I can just, make up for it and coast the rest of my life and enjoy everything." And he's like, "What do you think about that?" And I said, "Well, do you want my honest opinion?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life." And I said, "Is your mentor guy?" I was like, "Is he married?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "Does he have kids?" He's like, "No, I don't think so." And I was like, "Well, you got to be very careful who you are listening to then." I said, "Because if you do that for 5 years, what happens if in 6 years you're dead? Then that's all your kids are going to remember, was that you were a workaholic and you didn't make any time for them." I said, "Or what if you get to the end of the 5 years and you don't have a wife and your kids hate you?" And I was like, "So what's the point?" I said, your kid only has a 5th birthday party one time. They only have that championship baseball game one time. Like, so you have to make sure you're making time to be there when it matters most. And I love Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, because he talked about what's the one thing such that by doing it would make everything else easier or unnecessary. And he got a lot of flack when the book came out, because the critics were like, "Well, how could you only do one thing?" And he said, "I didn't say it was the only thing." He said, "The one thing is about being appropriate in the moment. So when I'm at work, I have a one thing. But when I'm at home, my one thing is not work anymore. Now it's being present," right? So being appropriate in the moment is my one thing with my kids, is being present in the moment and being there. But when I'm at work, I'm not trying to be present for my kids. I need to focus on lead generation, building relationships, leading the team. Like, I have a one thing. So you understand, there's no such thing as balance. There's no 50-50 balance in business and life. It's counterbalance. And you got to understand, when you get out of balance, you just got to go get balanced back, on the other side. And it's a constant juggling act. And there's really, it's a pipe dream to think that life someday is just going to be this perfect 9 to 5. And, I'm not going to have seasons to go through and all that. That's a lie. So I think that's really helped me over all of these years. But that's how I balance, is just being aware of, like, okay, I've had a really busy week or two in business, so maybe I need to take a day off next week, or maybe I need to leave early a couple days, or do some things to counterbalance what happens, because it's never going to be perfect. So,
well, in that
was a long answer to your
mindset,
question.
That was perfect.
Well, in that mindset of push really hard for 5 years, I see that all the time. We see it all the time. People come to us going like, "I just need to just make it happen." And the sad side of that is I don't know if I've made a lot of people cry over the years. I've had a lot of people cry on coaching calls over the years.
Sure.
And more often than not, it's somebody in their late 40s, early 50s that has been taking that mentality. If I just push hard for like this certain amount of years, everything's going to fall into place. And it's not that they are single. It is that they have a spouse that doesn't want to be around them anymore. They have kids that don't want to be around them anymore, and they can't get any of that time back. And a lot of people don't realize. I loved how you said there's one championship, there's one 5th birthday party. Like, these things only happen once, and if you miss them, there is no getting it back. There is no do-overs on this stuff. And
you can't
a lot of it you can do over. A lot of business you can do over, but not that stuff.
Well, and how many people get to the end of the 5 years and be like, I just need one more year.
One more year.
You just need one more, maybe 2 more years. Like I'm almost there. We're seeing it happen, right? I just need one more year. And it's like, oh gosh. And your explanation of it, Dennis, was perfect, because the truth is if you align it, it's going to work out well in your business too. Like, the money is going to be there. And I think we get stuck in these absolutes of, well, if you put in this much time worked, you're going to get this much money out of it. And it doesn't work like that. And yeah, if you're young, like, there might be seasons where you are going to work hard, right? There's going to be times where you're going to work over the weekend or work at night or whatever it is. But you never want those moments to then overwhelm those other important moments that exist in your life. Like, okay, you can miss maybe going out for beers with your buddies, right? But spending that time with your spouse or your family, if you have one, is absolutely crucial. And if you're single at this point and you're young and you're listening to this, like, okay, it might be your season to work, but also look out for those opportunities, because it's also your season to go find that spouse too, potentially, if that's what you're looking for. And if you're letting work consume you and that's the excuse as why you can't find that partner, you may want to revisit the way you're approaching your business. And think about that kind of prioritization.
If you think of it, if you look at life like a highway, like the song, right? And on one end, one ditch is your work life and the other ditch is your personal life, right? You never get in a car and get in the middle lane and just mash the accelerator and let go of the steering wheel. Like, the car does not just go center of the road. It starts to drift one way or another. And so what you're doing in life is you're constantly adjusting left to right, on that steering wheel. And so when you get the goals, just stay out of the ditch. So if you're too far over on the work, I was telling the team yesterday, the first year I was back, I didn't take any personal days at all back. Like Monday through Friday, I think I worked for a year straight. I never took a morning off, never took a day off other than the weekends. But that was the season I was in and getting the business going again. And there are going to be late nights and there are going to be weekends you may have to work. But the key is to recognize when you're starting to get out of balance and just adjust that wheel back over and then spend a little bit of time over here. And so, but you're constantly, nothing is ever perfectly balanced. If you see something that's balanced, what's happening is it's actually balancing, right? If you stand on one leg, you're not just perfectly balanced, you're doing this, right? And that's life. You're back and forth, juggling, one way to the other. And I think it's an awareness thing. And I think, I've been married since I was 21. So when I finally learned this concept and my wife learned this concept, now she recognizes, she might say, hey, we're out of balance, or hey, I think we need to counterbalance a little bit. That's the language. And so she knows I'm going to have seasons where it's busier than others, but we also understand that it's a counterbalance conversation. And it was so freeing for us when we realized that it wasn't going to be perfect. It was like, oh, okay. Because we were trying to achieve something that really wasn't real. And when we realized it wasn't real, life became a lot better for us, even in our marriage, just because she wasn't expecting me to be balanced every day. But she did expect me to counterbalance. So yeah, that helped a ton.
I got to go back to you said you never get in the car and just mash the accelerator. And my brain was going, yeah, you do. And then you said the steering wheel thing. I was like, oh, yeah, you always want to have your hands on the steering wheel. Don't ever do that.
Yeah. You can mash the accelerator, but you better be very aware of what side of the road you're on.
You got to hold on tight.
Can we, I want to drive this in this direction. Can we talk about this organization that your son created and the passion behind this? Because again, we started this off where I said, I really want to talk about making good humans in this world, and everything that Matt shared with me, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like your world that you've created here is also bringing in amazing humans, 5 amazing humans, and one of them created this organization. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is and how this started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my son came home from church one day and told me how he wanted to be a missionary. And he was 5 years old. He's like, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's that? And he said, a missionary. And I said, well, what's a missionary? And he said, someone who goes around the world and tells people about Jesus. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, I just want to make sure he knew it wasn't like selling ice cream or whatever, like he really understood what it was. And so for 2 years, he was just obsessed with this idea. And I don't know, I mean, it just had to have come from God, but that was just all he talked about. And one day at lunch, he's talking about, he loves Legos and he loves building Legos. And he said, maybe I could be a Lego missionary. And then we said, well, what's that? And he said, I could go around and I could teach kids, how to build Legos and all this stuff. And we were kind of having a conversation about how you don't have to wait till you're older to make an impact. You don't have to wait till you're older to do that. You can make a difference now. But we weren't really thinking about an outreach ministry or anything like that. And so he talked about that idea, and I said, we could probably do that now. Like, we could buy some Legos, maybe go to an apartment complex and, set up some tables and do Legos with kids and minister to them. And so I reached out to a local organization. I bought 100 Lego sets, by the way, that weekend, because I knew if I didn't buy them, it would never happen. And so those suckers, they sat in my living room for probably like 2 months, before we actually had an event. But I knew if I bought them that we would make this happen. So we called a local mission organization that does a lot of apartment ministry and different things. And we asked if they had any kids we could do this with. And they were like, well, we have thousands of kids you could do this with. And so we had our first event, and little Dennis. So my son is also named Dennis. So he's Dennis the fourth. I'm Dennis the third. And anyway, so he. So we went out and we did this first event, and we fed kids. We gave them a brand new Lego set. All of my kids and then their friends volunteer. So they're serving pizza. They're going around helping kids follow the instructions. Most of the kids in areas that we go have never opened a new Lego set in their life. So the concept of instructions is very foreign to them. So, I mean, like, I've seen my 6-year-old daughter helping a 10-year-old boy. Okay, you need to do this, and then you go here, and then you do that. And so they'll do that, and then little Dennis and I get up and we do a message. He's been public speaking now since he was 7 years old, so half his life. He gets up there and we talk about, we kind of banter back and forth on the message, but we talk about how when you follow the Lego instructions, your Legos turn out the way they were designed. And we just relate that back to the Bible and say, look, if you follow the Bible's instructions, your life turns out the way that God designed it to be. And we kind of draw that correlation for the kids. And then at the end, we give them a snack bag to go home, because a lot of these kids are not getting the nutrition, that they need. And so we're essentially feeding them twice and giving them a Lego set. We have a big Lego character, Emmett, like Disney level quality costume that one of my clients gave me. And we do Polaroid pictures with the kids, and we do all that while we're there. And we're in and out in like an hour. But that was 2018. And so we did one event. We're like, that was fun, and then we did another event, and they were like, do you want to keep doing this? And so we just kept doing events. And by the end of the year, we had a nonprofit set up just so we didn't have to pay sales tax, and also so we could have people basically donate then get the write-off if they wanted that as well. And I'm getting my computer charger brought down because I'm about to lose my battery here. So then I think fast forward to today, we've done over 150 of these events. We've ministered to thousands of kids. I think probably 7,000 or so probably at this point. Our average event is about 50 kids that show up, and we average about 2 a month. We've done events through other groups in Poland and Africa, We have a building right now in Africa that we are building that's part of like this community park. I just had a call with them yesterday. That's going to open up this year. But we will have a Building Blocks for Kids location in Gulu, Uganda, and we're going to staff it, and we'll have people doing our program that we do on the weekends. They're going to be doing it every day of the year in Uganda for thousands of kids. So that came up. So it's developed into this thing, and it's like, it's cool to see like my kids, doing this together, administering. And I asked little Dennis, and then I'll be quiet, but I asked little Dennis about a year into this, we were doing it. And I said, what made you want to be a missionary? Cause I never asked him why. And he said, and I quote, he said, I don't know. He said, it's something God put in my heart to do. And he said, if God gives you a job to do, you better do it, or he'll give it to someone else and you'll miss the best days of your life. And I was like, dang, he was 8 years old. Wow. Telling me this,
You're like,
right?
Hold on, I'm taking notes. Wait, hold on a second.
Oh, yeah, no, I pulled the car over and I was like, I got to write that down really quick, man. And so he, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, that is so true. I said, because if you had not had this like call on your heart to do this, and if we had not done this together as a family, I said, if I think about the best times of my life, all the fun things I've got to do in my career, it's the best times of my life are actually serving with my wife and my kids and helping others in the community, putting on that Lego costume on the times that I have to do it.
Having a vision like that without having that hook of, I want this to be something, I want this to create something, I want to make this me wealthy, I want to do like all this stuff that we bring in all the time. What's so cool is when you have that pure, honest vision, mission, this is what I'm about and where I'm going. Like, that's where I see the biggest results happen for people, whether it's in their business, whether it's starting a nonprofit like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Making an impact like that. It all starts with, I just know I need to go do this.
Yeah. And that's what motivated me, seeing little Dennis start that. I was like, man, if a 7-year-old can see his dreams coming to pass like this and taking action. And I've let them literally, anything that they can do, I let them do it. And we just do the adults parts that they can't do, but literally I'm like, if a 7-year-old can do that, and literally now is like doing international ministry, it's like, what can we not do as adults? Like what excuse do we have, And I'm like, and I think a lot of times, and anytime I share about this, Garrett, it's, I think a lot of times we have this dream in our heart or this vision in our heart, but we don't know where to start. And I think what I learned the most from Building Blocks for Kids is just start. Just go do it. Don't do it perfectly. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. And we just learned as we went. We knew nothing about running a nonprofit, but it's just those little pieces of action, and it just builds and builds and builds. We were not sitting around thinking, oh, let's go build this big outreach ministry. It was just like, let's go do one event and go help some kids and have some fun with it. And then one thing led to another. And, and every door that's open just came to us as a part of just taking action, right? Just take one step and then don't worry about the rest of it. And so that's probably the biggest thing I've learned, from all of that. So.
Well, and how true is that for anybody? Agents out there that are like, man, I need to have this perfect plan. I need to have this perfect marketing. I need to have all this stuff in place before I pick up the phone. And it's, hey, just start doing the thing, because momentum is your fuel for success and for continuation and for sustainability. And I got to say, what a testament it is to you and your wife as well, that your son was able to receive. Now, obviously, you didn't play a role in God speaking to him,
right.
but for him to grow up with the awareness that could happen, and to be able to be in a position to receive that message so that he could deploy it, and for you guys to be like, hey, cool, let's run with this, versus, hey, that's nice, when you get older, and I'm sure there'll be some trips that the church does and you can get involved in that, and you guys took action. So kudos to you as well for inspiring that and driving that action forward and being part of that, which is really awesome, which I think is an incredible example of why your business runs the way that it does, because it's, a lot of times we look at businesses and we pull them apart and say, what are the key elements of this business? And most of the time, particularly the great books that we read, it comes down to, well, who are the people behind that business, right? Yeah. And your energy and what you brought to the table to drive your business and how you bring other people into it are I think the key reason why you guys are successful and able to run the traditional model in an untraditional world.
Right.
So
thank you.
I appreciate you for that.
Yeah. And we've just, even as parents, it's like if your kid's into sports, you get them into baseball or you get them into sports, and just happened to be our kid was like into ministry for for that reason. So I was like, well, let's figure out how to get him, get him involved and support that. Right. And show up for that. And, so it's that's really all it was behind that. And then it just turned into what it turned into. But I think learning to just equip, a vision, right? Here's a vision. Let's equip it. Let's figure out how we can go take action on it. So I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
I think going back to that whole creating good humans, part of being a good parent is you just watch for the subtle signs in your kids of when they all of a sudden show a little bit of interest in anything, and you go, I'll support you. Let's explore that even more. And sometimes it lasts for a day, sometimes it lasts for a week, and sometimes it's like, like my daughter was like, I'm a dancer and I'm going to be a dancer, and we're going that route. You find those avenues, and the best thing you can do for a child is let them explore, let them learn, open up those doors and make it possible. And you going out and buying 100 Lego sets and being like, well, that's done. Like we're moving this direction. Like that's the best thing you could have done. It's awesome.
I just know myself. I have to obligate myself or it's not gonna happen. So.
Well, and don't we all? Like, if you just, like you said, just take the first action, take the first step, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, well, I got these 100 Lego sets. We can't just let them sit here. And let's do it, right? Like, we're going through spring cleaning and we just put everything in here. It's like, well, it's all here. We got to do something with it now. It's got to be sold. It's got to be donated. We got to do something with this stuff.
That's right.
So take that first action.
Exactly.
Well, so Matt, if there's any other direction you want to go down, Dennis, if there's anything else you want to share, this has been an incredible, I'm so grateful for the time that we've been able to share with you today. Is there anything else you want to add or anything else you want to share with our audience? And Matt, is there any other questions that you want to ask before we put a bow on this? This is amazing.
Dennis, anything you want to share?
I think the last thing I'd want to leave everybody with was kind of what got me started in the beginning. And even with building blocks for kids or any of this stuff, when I got my real estate license in 2009, January 2009, it was like the worst real estate market ever. And one of the concepts I've lived by is that the land doesn't care who the farmer is. So no matter, where you're from or what you look like or how young you are or how old you are, there's patterns to success and there's patterns to failure. And you guys are talking about these two things all the time. Here's the pattern of failure. Here's the pattern of success. So if a farmer follows the right pattern of success, the land will produce for anybody who's willing to work the land. And any limiting belief we have that says otherwise is not true. And so as long as they plant the right seed, they water at the proper time, they follow that formula, the land will produce for anybody who's willing to work the land. And the land doesn't decide the size of the harvest, the farmer does. You wake up and decide, I'm going to work an acre, or I'm going to work 100 acres, or I'm going to work 1,000 acres. And the land will produce according to the work that's put into it. And that was the thing that really gave me confidence moving into real estate in such a terrible time. And I told my wife, the land doesn't care who the farmer is. There's people out here that are still successful, and I'm just going to do what they did. Because when I got my license, she said, well, when I wanted to, she said, well, all the real estate agents I know are broke and work too much. and I said, I know. But I said, I know people who are crushing it and they're teaching other people how to do it. And I'm just going to do what they did. And she was like, okay. And so I would just encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast or any of your podcasts, or hearing the Building Blocks for Kids story or whatever, is the land doesn't care and life doesn't care who the farmer is, who the person is. Just follow the right success pattern, figure that out, go to school on that, figure that out, and the land doesn't care who the farmer is. So you can do any of the stuff that you're wanting to do. You just have to go figure out the pattern to success and then do it. So this is not reserved for me. It's not reserved for little Dennis. It's not reserved for just Matt and Garrett. Like there's a pattern to this stuff. And no matter what you want to achieve, somebody in life has already done it, and they did it under far worse circumstances than where you are today. So that's what I'd like, I would leave with that. Just, believe in yourself to go do it and go figure it out.
I love that. And Dennis, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They could email us dennis@dennistuttleteam.com. They could reach out. That's probably the quickest way. And then myself, I'll respond back. They could have my phone number, all that stuff. dennistuttleteam.com is our website. And then Building Blocks for Kids is buildingblocks4kids.org. That's also the Facebook handler. If they wanted to go see, Facebook's probably more up to date with all that. But if you want to see pictures of events and things, you could go facebook.com/buildingblocks4kids.org, and that would show up there as well. So
very cool. Well, thanks, Dennis.
Yep.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your mission statements, your visions, and all about what's going on and everything that you're doing. We just really appreciate you coming on and sharing and inspiring everyone else who's listening out there to follow in that journey and elevate themselves as well. So you're certainly accomplishing your mission. I'd say, like, I'm elevated leaving this conversation for sure. And I know Garrett is too. I'm not going to speak for him, but I know he is too.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much, sir. I mean, this has been an honor. Matt, thank you for bringing Dennis into our world here and having you share your story. And we get so much feedback from our listeners that they love hearing stories like yours. They love hearing about people's journeys. So, sir, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I've like I said, been listening to the podcast for a long time. So to be on it is really cool. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been our pleasure. Well, for any of our listeners out there who want to tune into more, we've got great interviews coming up. We have great interviews that we've been doing. So if you like these interviews, they are in our episode history. You can go check those out on Apple. You can check them out on Spotify. You can also go to YouTube. We've got those there. If you want to learn more about what we're doing inside Life at 1010s, come and check us out there. We've got the 11 Circle, which is our group coaching program. We have one-on-one coaching that Matt does and I do, and we would love to have you be part of our world. We are building out a place of amazing people is really what we're doing, and we want to celebrate that with as many of you as we possibly can. So, Dennis, thank you. Matt, thank you. To everybody listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you showing up, and see you next time.
Take care, everyone.